Welcome to another episode of the GenCast, hosted by former Major League Baseball players Trent Olchin and me, Ryan Roland Smith. Trent and I created Next Gen Baseball with the sole purpose to change the trajectory of our players and build the next generation of Major Leaguers. Whether it's lighting that fire for that 10-year-old at our camp or opening the floodgates to NCAA powerhouse programs, we are on a mission to create opportunities, mentor, and change lives. Now, this is a special episode as I sit down with one of my good buddies, but more importantly, the pitching coach and recruiter for Oregon State University, one of the most successful college baseball programs out there. We dive into the do's and don'ts when it comes to emailing coaches, the videos that grab his attention, and what he's actually looking for when he comes to watch you play. So if you are, or you're about to go showcase in front of these universities and colleges, big or small, you don't want to miss this episode. Now, if you love this episode, make sure you click subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. There is also a YouTube video link available below. So throw on your headphones, sit back, or kick off that workout and enjoy this episode of the GenCast. All right, Rich. Well, first of all, welcome to the podcast, champion. I know you got a lot of time on your hands. And I want to just kick this off on, a bit of a downer. I just want to give my condolences. The NCAA shut the season down. So you guys are basically sitting there. I mean, this has never happened before, especially in your career or ever. What are you guys doing as a staff and as a program right now in these days where you have to stay at home?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely uncharted territory for everybody. I think the biggest thing after we kind of just face it, took the pill, swallowed it, and now it's like, how are we going to get these guys better? How are we going to get the rest of keep improving instead of just wasting days kind of feeling like victims? Like, everyone's in the mess. How are we going to come out on top of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. You make a good point because, you can look at this two ways. Now, if your health is intact and you're able to, obviously, if you're being affected by this thing from a health standpoint, I get it. It's something that's brand new. But if you're let's say in your situation, you guys are one of the biggest programs there is in college baseball and your most successful program, you just joined them as a pitching coach. I guarantee you there's no way that the staff with you guys aren't just scouring through new recruits and doing every little thing you can, checking in with players and everything, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like you said, being new to Oregon State, and so I'm just trying to develop relationships right now. I can talking to coaches, talking to, some players. I'm doing a better job. I'm not so much I can't spend time with our guys. So now I'm pouring into the recruiting piece within the boundaries of NCAA and just, a lot of phone calls, watching a lot of video. So it's been good. I mean,
And for those who are listening right now, and again, a lot of the people listening to this come from the Northwest in Seattle, and especially back in Australia. So to give you a little introduction, you and I go way back. We're going to dive into that for a little bit. Matter of fact, I've got a little prop back here we're going to talk about in a second. But it's your first year at Oregon State. You're the pitching coach, right? How'd you get to Oregon State? You were at Grand Canyon University before that. How'd you get to Oregon State?
Well, my history, I played here in 1999 one season. So there was a little bit of history there with the program. I grew up in Oregon. Coach Canham, who got the head coaching job here at Oregon State, we worked together in the Mariners organization in 2016.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my last year with the Mariners, it was Mitch's first year with the Mariners, and so we were together in the Midwest League in Clinton, good old Clinton, and so we spent a nice 3.5, maybe 4.5, 5 months together, including spring training. Just connected really well, and so as soon as he got the job, I left to go to Grand Canyon. He stayed in the Mariners organization, and then our paths crossed again. We kept in contact even when I left the Grand Canyon. So
Coach Canham, so he went straight from Mariners organization straight to Oregon State.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, and taking over for who?
Well, Coach Bailey was he was the interim head coach, and then obviously Pat Casey before him. So
yeah, Pat Casey as the head coach. How many years was he the head coach at Oregon State? Long time.
I mean, he was there when I was there in 1999.
Wow. That's rare though, right? I mean, I feel like all these programs, I hear it all the time because again, I'm in the industry, in the business, getting kids recruited, and every time a coaching staff, we had an issue with that with one of our kids. The coaching staff left, so all of a sudden the commit is kind of out on an island, stuck, and he gets decommitted. There's a lot of that happens around college baseball. I feel like you're at Grand Canyon University with Coach Stankiewicz. I feel like that's a core there that will probably stick around for a long time. In Oregon State, it's a core of coaches that stick around a long time. Why? First of all, why is there so much turnover, do you think, in some of these other programs?
Pat Casey was here for 23 years. Wow. But as far as turnaround, I think some people always are trying to potentially look for the next best thing or better themselves, better their career, and they're always trying to make moves. I think for me, I'm really like, I don't want to move. Like, this is it for me. This is my gig. I'm no interest in a head coaching job. Like, I want to try to become the best pitching coach in the country and make a reputation. I've done it for a while in pro ball for a while. So I want to bring that intensity here in college and Oregon State. And so I guess for trying to better themselves and move on.
You know what? And you mentioned something about doing that in pro ball. You had a big impact on a lot of pitchers who are having huge careers in the big leagues. Matter of fact, I use your name as an icebreaker for some of these guys. James Paxton, the way I sort of introduced myself to him was like, oh, hey, Rich Dorman. He's like, oh, yeah, Rich, and because you had him and you made a huge impact on his career. Another guy, Taiwan Walker, this spring training, I wasn't, when he's first run with the Mariners, when he was here, I wasn't here. I came back, he comes back. I'm like, okay, my icebreaker here is, Rich Dorman. Tell me about some of the impact and the relationship you made with some of these major pitchers.
Yeah, I think the whole part of it's developing a relationship with the guys, and I mean that's just one piece of it. The next is bringing knowledge to them and actually helping them develop them, and I believe the relationship starts there, and you just continue to build it and help them develop. And I think impact coaches are able to adapt to the player and what their specific needs are and relate to them, but figure out how to improve them individually versus the whole broad spectrum. I know some coaches just teach ABC, ABC, ABC. You got to be able to teach ABCD if you got to teach everything, because it's unique to the individual. So.
Yeah, it's amazing when I look back at the coaches I had who made an impact on my career, teammates who made an impact on my career. You were one of them, but it's that relationship. It's that basically that sounding board, like Brad Holman. I don't know if you had Brad at all. He was that. Oh yeah. Now he was that guy I had a pitching coach who said, hey, your curveball's too slow. Stop throwing it. You have to throw a slider only. And I'm like, dude, that's my bread and butter. And I'm in A-ball. I'm thinking to myself, well, man, if I can't use that, I've got no chance. I get to double A, and I start working with Brad. He's like, no, that's a good pitch. It does this, it does that. No, throw that thing. And it was this thing where it was a belief system where I felt like, here's my pitching coach, the one who really calls the shots or has this influence over me because he's the authority figure. And here he is saying, hey, whatever you have is good enough, and makes such a difference. I think it comes down to that relationship. So that's something, obviously, you pride yourself on that relationship, right?
Yeah, I mean, that, and just also instilling confidence in guys, knowing when they need a pat on the back and knowing they need like a stern talking to just to overcome and get that confidence back. And I think that's what makes us who we are as coaches. Of all the people who influenced us in a positive way and a negative way, we've all had great coaches, we've had bad coaches, but I took little bits and pieces from all of them. And when we were playing together, we were fortunate. Mariners, we had unbelievable coaches. Our minor league development, our player development system was awesome.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I was just soaking it all up. I was, a little too much at times, but I think that's what kind of helped me to become a great coach.
Yeah. And do you think that relationship with players is more prevalent in college baseball than it is pro ball? Or it's the same? Do you treat it the same way?
I am who I am. I always, whether I was in pro ball or college, I'm coaching the same way, and I think that's why I related really well to some of the guys in pro ball, just because I care more about the person versus just their signing bonus, or sometimes coaches put stamp on players and try to. I'd help the guy who signed for $2 million, and I help the guy who signed for $50 and a plane ticket or something, and I mean and the players feel that, and they see me treat everyone the same and give them all the same attention. Early work, you don't have to be a bonus baby to get early work, right? I want you to be good. You make a run at this thing, and so I feel like that pours into college the same way.
Yeah. It's interesting. First of all, I tell kids, whether it's a stud or whether it's a kid who's probably destined to go to a smaller JUCO or something like that, the relationship, your first couple of priorities, and I'm going to get into some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to getting recruited and everything else. But one of the big priorities I always say to these guys is you have to go to a place where you can have a relationship with those coaches, right? Mm-hmm. Because how many times, and I've seen this a million times, where careers, dude, why didn't that guy get out of AA? Because that relationship he has with the coach, the environment he's in, can completely steer him through a 6-month season or a college season.
Yeah, no, and it's like I don't sleep at night knowing my guy had a rough outing. And as a player, I was the same way. Because I know what it felt like to go back to the hotel. Food doesn't taste good. Your bed's harder, whatever it is. Just because baseball is important, and I know how important it was to me and as a young player, and I really respected those coaches that went out of their way to help me work through those things. And so I feel it's important for me to do the same thing for those guys, and that's where improvement starts happening.
Hey, while we're on that note, speaking of going back to the hard bed, the hotel, what about the host families? All right, how about some of the host families? Now, you and I had a classic, right? And hopefully she's listening, Paulette, at Appleton, Wisconsin. Now, let's dive into this. Let's switch gears for a second. We're in low A, right? We're not making any money. Both got no money whatsoever, right? No. And the year prior to that, I actually went to Appleton the year before that, and you want to talk about relationships with coaches and teammates. We had just a slew of guys that were just the worst influence. I was a 19-year-old kid, neighbor. Just an absolute, I can't even. And I got sent down to Everett. That's where you and I met. But the year after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a host family. I'm going to hang out with Rich and have my little crew of people. But I got this nice little prop, and if you're wondering why I've got this, right? Can you explain to the listeners what I think about every time I see this? And this isn't mine, by the way. It's my daughter's. But what
you don't play with that?
Why did I bring this out, especially to sit here and talk to you?
That brings back a lot of memories. That year in Wisconsin, we didn't have a lot of money, but we needed to get from A to B, obviously, host family in the field. So Ryan and I were like, let's pool some money together and buy a van,
Hey, there was one other person in that house too for a while.
Yeah, David Beyond or something. Anyway, so we pulled up enough money together to buy something, and I guess all we could afford was this blue Astro whatever minivan. We had to carry around a pitcher of water in there in case it overheated. I mean, it was dead in the middle of the winter when we got this thing. The tranny was ready to blow.
We're trying to get sold like this. Remember that one host family guy was trying to sell us that ugly car? He's like, no, this one. No, we want the minivan. Are you kidding?
Yeah, we want to take around a bunch of players if we have to.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
More room for the honeys. No,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. We drove that thing to Milwaukee. That was a couple hours to watch. Remember that? That was scary.
Barry Bonds, the Giants, Brewers. We went down. But I'm surprised it made it.
Oh my God!
I was thinking, there's no way this band's going to go to Milwaukee and back.
I know every mile I'm sitting in that car, and first of all, the tires were worn down. I mean, that thing would slide on the ice everywhere. And we're cruising to Milwaukee because Barry Bonds, dude. I'm like, we have to go watch him play. He's playing with the Giants against the Brewers. It's a Sunday, and he's taking the day off. I couldn't believe it.
Remember Foppert, one of Foppert's buddies, the catcher, Phillips? Or no?
Yeah. You mean on our team, or it was in the big leagues?
Well, he knew Jesse Foppert.
Oh, right.
they went to like the same college, and so we were able to get on the pass list because Fopper was with the Giants. So we
That's right. That's right. That's right.
What was that catcher's name?
Was
Nick
it
Phillips?
no, Phillips? He went to LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
He threw a knuckleball.
There's another side story that you love to tell about that kid. Remember you were busting out of the dugout?
I was like, dude, this is trickling around in my mind as you're talking about Phillips. I'm like, should I bring this story up?
That story's great. Tell this one.
I'm busting out. I think it was probably it was early in the season, pretty cold, packed out. Appleton.
Oh, yeah.
Packed out, and all the honeys in the stands, like you said. And I'm busting out, and I think I threw the inning before that or something. I felt pretty good about myself. Busting out. As soon as I get over that top step of the dugout, boom, straight. And I'm like, oh, did anyone see that? I get right back up like a trooper, back on the mound, and I'm like doing this one. It was right in front of the mound, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him, and he's catching, so he's got the mask on. You just see him shaking because he's laughing.
Because he's a little bigger guy, and he filled out his mask. Oh, my God.
So I did this, and I was so angry, right? And I quickly, started to laugh about it, but I was so angry because I'm like, hey, mind you, I'm 19, 20 years old, so I take myself way too seriously. I'm like, hey, quit it, man. I'm trying to pitch. And so I ended up, I gave him this one, the sign for the curveball. Woo, fastball straight at him because I was so angry. And I was like, okay, chill out, dude. Chill out.
You did that?
Oh, I was because he wouldn't stop laughing. I was like, dude, calm down. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Good times.
Good times.
Wow, we just went down a big rabbit hole right there.
Did. I know.
That was fun, though.
We did. But you know what? Speaking of those times and going back, and one of the big debates back in Australia with some of these kids that we bring over with Next Gen Baseball is, should I sign professionally? Should I go play college baseball? I'm on the run, and I always try and tell this to kids who are starting to get the signing bonuses thrown at them. Matter of fact, I was talking to Justice Sheffield, who was going to go to Vanderbilt, and he ended up signing for $1.6 million. Now, that's life-changing money. Well, in Australia, it's a little bit – in the States, it's different to in Australia. In Australia, it's if you have a pro scout coming at you with that, that fitted Texas Rangers hat and saying, hey, man, you're going to come in this organization. Well, it's such a lure because they're like, oh, college ball, that's plan C, right? You've done both. You've been to a big school. You've been to a small school. You've played all through the minor leagues, and we were just telling stories about A-ball. One thing I try and tell these kids, and it's very hard sell, is what you get from going to college as opposed to playing pro ball. I want to put this question on you. You've got a son, right? How much money would it take for your son to not go play college baseball, do you think, if you had that choice?
No, I think there's some variables in there for me. First thing is what is my son? I'm not gonna have my daddy goggles on, going thinking, oh, my kid's the best thing since sliced bread. Is he a big leaguer? Could he potentially play in the big leagues? Is he ready maturity wise? Can you go and handle that environment? I mean, that's one of the first things. The other thing is I know how much college degree is worth. It's a really valuable thing, and pro ball is always going to be there. And so if I check those boxes and that leads me to a certain way, I'm pushing towards college. And I'm not saying that just because I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm saying it because I coached in the minor leagues for 8 years. I've coached so many kids that came straight from high school. I'm like, man, this kid could use 3 more years of just maturing and growing up and being thrown in that environment, know how to handle adversity versus just being the star in high school and, never getting their mouth punched, or never getting their teeth kicked in. And now all of a sudden they got to have it in a pro environment where it's really kind of a ruthless environment. I mean, there's not a lot of friends. I mean, you and I, our bond was pretty cool and it was genuine. There weren't minor leagues, man. It's everyone for themselves. And so now that I know both arenas, I love the college arena. I think it's such a special time for kids to live and be a kid and enjoy that part and develop. You get 3 years of development and really high level like Oregon State. It's kind of equivalent to high AA baseball. So you're going to get all that maturity wise. And then if they're willing to give you 1.3 out of high school, you're going to go play and get 3 years better. What would they be willing to give you then?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Do you want to answer that? You good? Are you good?
Huh?
You good? I just heard the phone ringing. So,
That's fine.
yeah. And you make a good point. We're sitting here throwing out stories about, Ice Rabbit and good old times driving to Milwaukee. But, man, we can laugh about it now. But back then, it was no joke. And it was interesting. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. We like to throw that at a lot of kids. And we've seen it. 80% of – I've got a spreadsheet at home. Every Australian who's played professional baseball, and I know a lot of them. Around the time when I signed, but there was a slew of kids, flying over to the States and lasting 2 years, and they're done. And then you get around them on national teams and everything else, and they're like, oh, well, I was doing this, I was doing that, or you hear from teammates. But it's like you said, man, when you're 18, you are clueless about what kind of person you are, what kind of athlete you are, what kind of pitcher you are or hitter you are. You're clueless, that you really are. And it can be so hard. And again, we're sitting here talking about $500 minivans and everything else and, laughing with teammates. But, mate, you are making no money. Hopefully you put that signing bonus to the side and invest that, because you're sacrificing that college degree and everything else. I spoke to Colin Wynn a couple of days ago on this, and it was just so fun to watch him for two reasons. One, he loves the day-to-day. You can still be a kid. Don't be in a rush to be an adult and get out of school. And two, just his presence, man. Like, he's just like got this. His chest is sticking out because he's all of a sudden maturing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's something that is so big for some of these kids to remember. Now, speaking of that, I want to dive into. You've just switched schools. You're at Grand Canyon University for a long time. Well, how many years were you at Grand Canyon University?
About three and a half. Yep.
Now, one other thing that I don't think people realize this in your position, not only are you a pitching coach, which that's what you were in pro ball coaching, which is enough responsibility as it is. Now, all of a sudden, you've got to become a scout because you're out recruiting, and you also have to be, basically, like a big brother or like a mentor for these kids, because you're doing everything yourselves. How hard is it? How much of a shock was it recruiting for you when you first started recruiting at GCU?
It was really tough, like the first few months, because I went and watched amateur baseball for like the first time in over 16 years.
Right.
And so my first tournament, I was like, oh my God, these kids are terrible. Like, I was out watching kids throw 80 miles an hour, and I'm like, hey, this guy's going to be good. And I'm like, wow. And so I had to learn to start forecasting and kind of measuring the age, like, oh, this guy's a freshman. So that part adjusting took a little bit of time, but all in all, like, you just start to look for little things that are important to me, like mound presence, they throw strikes, do they pitch with tempo? Are they fiery? They hustle on and off? Are they good team players? How do they react when the umpire balls them? Or how do they react when they give up a double? Just little things like that. And you just kind of start creating spreadsheets, and then that's just getting them on your board. And then once they're on their board, now you start the phone calls, or go to their Twitter and see. You can kind of find a lot about a guy by going to their social media.
I want to ask you about that, and sorry to interrupt here, but I talk a lot about the social media thing. Is that a big part of it? Looking at their Twitter, looking at their Instagram.
That's all I do right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on social media. I'm finding out there's a ton of videos they post, and I'm finding out what they like, what they don't like.
Yeah. And you're talking about, when you say videos, you're not talking about clips of them pitching. You're talking about you pitching. But what about them as a kid? I mean, are you looking up if they're doing stupid stuff, or if they're just the whole demeanor and presence on social media?
Yeah, sometimes you kind of listen to what you see, what they like and what they retweet. Not necessarily what they post.
Yeah.
And you can kind of figure out what type of kid he is, or
right.
a little bit. It's not everything, but it's a starting point. I mean, you can kind of start to go, okay, little things like that. So it can be a tool and a good thing, or it could be a negative thing.
Gotcha. And so when you first started recruiting, I mean, you mentioned that watching a kid, a sophomore or a junior, watching them pitch, it's basically, did you kind of, when you started recruiting, were you looking for, was Coach Stankiewicz saying, hey, look, you got to go find us some sophomores? Was that kind of the basis of recruiting that age?
when I got there, we didn't have like our first recruiting class. I think we had like one guy, and so it was full on like go get your guys. And I made a couple of mistakes early because I was still trying to figure things out. And then looking at the staff they have now at Grand Canyon, and I'm just like, those guys they got some good arms, man. I think they throw strikes. That's one thing I love about in college baseball specifically. I can start working on some velo. We can get you in the weight room. We can do some mechanical things, clean you up a little bit. Because strike throwers are going to be strike throwers. Yeah. So, like, if you could throw strikes and now the velo comes, we got an absolute dude. And so that's kind of, I like strike throwers, man. They show me 2 or 3 pitches for strikes. Wow. I'm in.
But usually it's the other way around, right? I hear this all the time from everyone's like, oh, no, he just has to, like parents, right? As long as he throws gas, they'll teach him how to throw strikes. So you're the other way around. You feel like you can, if you can command the baseball, have that presence, I can teach you how to throw hard. I can get you stronger.
Absolutely. I'd rather go that route because if the velo never comes, you can still go out and compete.
Yeah.
Because we got a pretty good defense. We'll be able to catch the ball behind you as long as you throw strikes. Now, I mean, I'm not going to go recruit a kid throwing 78, okay?
Yeah.
I have to see a little bit of quick arm. I have to see some intangibles where maybe he's a little frail because he's still maturing or whatever. But that part, yeah.
But Oregon State, don't you guys just have flamethrowers? I mean, when I talk to the kids, they do their research, right? Some of the pitchers I got who come over and, talk about you or Oregon State or programs, they're like, oh, yeah, Oregon State, everyone throws 90, 97, 98.
We have our stable full of guys that throw extremely hard. Yeah, and right. So, but a lot of them we're recruiting when they're freshmen or sophomores and they're throwing 84, 86. Right. And then by the time they're seniors, now they're throwing, we got a kid, Mick Abel. Shoot, I just saw something on Twitter, last week. He's throwing 99.
Wow.
99.8. And so the odds of him coming to campus, we'll wait and see. It's just the pros and cons. The draft's all weird this year. Who knows what's going to happen? But that kid's an incredible talent. And he's not the only guy throwing low to mid-90s. But I think I wasn't here for that process because he was already committed. But I'm assuming when he was a freshman, he was probably 84, 86.
Yeah.
And wiry, and then the velo just keeps coming as they continue to get stronger. And that's how all of our guys are 94, 95.
Gotcha. Hey, and not to jump around here a little bit, but going back to pro ball, and I remember having a conversation, you probably don't remember it. You were talking about this as I think it may have been a specific player. You were sitting in a meeting, and there was this one kid who works his ass off, competes, put up really good numbers, and the front office basically just wrote him off. Said, oh, he's not a prospect. No, we're not going to. And you were sitting there going, your hands were tied in a sense because you're like, man, this kid could be really friggin' good, and he's getting better. Did you, and take us behind the scenes a little bit, like an organizational meeting, or one of those times where, whether it's at spring training, at the end of the year, do you guys sit around a table and say, this guy, yes, this guy, no, this guy, this guy, this guy? I mean, obviously that's a pretty broad question. But has there been moments where you're just like, man, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for this kid, a kid who you've really liked or you've mentored or gotten really better, but he's just not a prospect and that's just the way it goes?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a great career for a kid is getting a AA. Sometimes this kid's best career is getting him. He got drafted. Let's keep him in the org for 4 years, and he gets to high A. That's a great career for him. Yeah. That could be his Hall of Fame career, As far as when I was with the Mariners, I know most of our meetings in spring, we're figuring out rosters. Tacoma, West Tennessee or Jackson, to our Cal League team, Modesto, whatever it was, Bakersfield 1 year, and just placing our guys right where they needed to be. And then obviously you have org players that kind of fill the rosters and certain things. And then,
real quick, explain what an organizational player, explain what that is.
That's a guy who he's going to throw a ton of strikes. He's a great teammate. He's going to, he does all the little things right. He's a true pro. but his stuff is just, he's just not 95. He's not the electric whatever player. So he's going to be a great pro ball guy. You can send him any level. Yeah. He's going to go throw strikes. He's going to show up on time. He's going to be a pro. That's what he's going to do,
But he's not a priority, in other words.
No. Like the next year's draft class, they'll probably sign, a guy from a big D1, give him a lot of money, and then he'll blow that past that kid, and that kid will be still sitting there going, "What about me?" They keep doing great, buddy. You're good.
Have you ever seen, in the 8 years you were with the Mariners, did you ever see, because I'm trying to think back to like an organizational player get a chance? Like, do you ever see someone who wasn't a priority all of a sudden turn himself into a priority because he just consistently got better and better?
One kid for me that I think you know him too. I mean, this isn't a knock on the kid or the guy. He's a man now, but Jeff Harris. You remember Jeff Harris?
Yes, that's a good name. There you go.
Like that kid worked his way through the system and and he found his way in the big leagues. And he, I think he was one that sticks out to me who got his opportunity.
Yeah. That's a good one. And just to explain Jeff Harris, because I remember he was a little bit older than me. He's a scout now, actually. I run into him at T-Mobile all the time. He that's funny because he wasn't a dude. I remember I think I was in AA with him or something. Then next thing I know, he went to AAA for a second, and then boom, up to the big leagues. And it's like, hold on a sec. And he was having some success up there too.
Yeah, I was in AAA, and all of a sudden we got a guy coming in, and we're like, "Who's this kid from AA?" That's right. And it was him, and the next thing you know, he's in the big leagues, and couldn't happen to a better guy. I mean, to me, seeing those types of things happen, those stories, that's pretty awesome.
Now, transition that into the college, and you've talked about one kid, Jake Wong. He's with the Giants. He was a kid when he came in. He wasn't a flamethrower, wasn't a big stud, right, out of high school. All of a sudden, he transitioned himself into being a dude, right?
Yeah, part of it is the player. He's got a little bit of the it factor. Maybe the opportunity wasn't quite there in high school. He was behind 2 or 3 other studs. I mean, he was at the powerhouse Hamilton High School in Arizona and didn't throw as much as the rest of his teammates. But Coach Wallace and Coach Choate, they saw something in him and got him to Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And had a kind of a successful freshman year, showed signs of kind of being a guy. And then obviously my first year at GCU was, I think it was like 88 to 91 his freshman year, maybe a 91. Yeah. And then sophomore year, 92, 95, 96. And I think that's part of him just getting stronger and confident and a couple delivery pieces. And, he signed for $850,000 and 80th pick in the country. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I met him actually. I went and saw Cohen and Brody down at GCU during spring training. And Jake walked up and he's like, had shades on, huge gold chain. He's like, I'm like, oh man, who's this kid? And he's like, hey, Rich just told me, hey man, just be myself, and just start dropping that 850 on Jordans and
he's gold not chains. A gold chain kid, I'll tell you that right now. I know that.
All right, and now I want to get into a topic which I know a lot of parents are listening to this and kids. You see them all over the place, right? Now, the videos, the recruiting videos. Let's get this from the horse's mouth, right? You're at one of the biggest programs, Oregon State. You recruit. You've been doing this long enough. You guys are a powerhouse, the whole thing. When a kid emails you, and you must get, how many emails do you get in your inbox or whatever inbox it is a day? I mean, are you just getting crushed?
It's at least 20, 25, at least a day. And that adds up quick. 7 days, you better stay on it.
Do you open, and you can be honest here, do you open every single one, or how does that work?
I read the title, and if it's from someone I know, like that first little title is what I read. If it's a 2020, we're kind of done with 2020s. Yeah. So obviously I really don't look at a lot of those. But yeah, I'd really try to do. I know Coach Bailey's better at it than I am. Just opening every one. And I'm getting, I started doing that a lot. And every once in a while you get them and you're just like, oh boy, you're watching. You look at some of them and it's just like, I don't know if this guy understands where we're at. So
Yeah, when you say the title or who you get it from, you mean like from like if I sent you something, I'm not patting myself on the back here. You and I know each other. You know, I'm not going to send you some kid who's just like no chance. I'm going to send like like the kids who we sent off to GCU. I'm going to send you a kid that I think is a fit for Oregon State, who's of that caliber. You mean if you see it from someone like that you know really well? Is that what you mean, or from a kid that you know really well, or how's that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, if the title catches me, and it's from a reliable source, I'm gonna most likely definitely look at it, and I like it when the kids kind of describe why they're a fit for Oregon State.
Yeah,
what is it, and then give me some video. Show me a couple videos. Like and don't just send me like a pitch or a swing. Like show me that bat. Yeah, I want to see your pre-pitch preparation. I want to see how you act on the mound. See your body language.
Gotcha.
I want to see you in the box. I don't want to always just see the ball pulled down the line. Like show me you're going right center or something.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm writing this down because I'm trying to get these kids on our roster right now who our recruits, just trying to get them the videos, get them done right. And I always say, well, anyway, I'm not even going to give my opinion because you're the one opening these videos. But so the title's a big one. So get like, is there wording in the title or something? You mean like the subject on the email or that to make click open?
Yeah, the subject and just like a brief little, I'd hit them with that. Hey, fast, left-handed pitcher, 2021 grad, 88 to 90, GPA, bam.
Just boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Okay. And then I could go, okay, let's take a look real quick.
Now, what about, do you read, if it's a long-winded email, are you going to read the whole thing? I mean, you're getting 20 a day, right? So you're going to go through.
It's all just skim and be like, okay, all right, after a while, and I'll just go to the bottom and show me the video.
Okay. Now, okay, let's talk about the video. Now, what's the good length, right? If you're going to coach someone on how to do the video, what's the perfect length of the video? I mean, well, the first 20 seconds is something that's got to catch your attention, right? What should that first 20 seconds look like? Let's say it's for a pitcher.
Yeah, if it's I like seeing, sometimes when they do the videos where it's from behind and say they have the pocket radar or something, some sort of radar gun reading too, to match the pitch. I mean, I think that's fair and accurate, and I'd rather them just kind of roll it, instead of cutting it.
Okay.
Like, give me 5 fastballs in a row, and just like that. If it's a bullpen setting, and then show me 3 or 4 breaking balls, show me 3 or 4 changeups with the velo.
Gotcha.
And I'll watch it.
Does it matter if it's in game or bullpen?
I prefer game.
Yeah.
Because I like seeing body language. I think, how's this guy react on the mound? Right. I'd rather see game.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Because I always say to the kids, hey, just cut in between because you only have X amount of time. So that's a good one. I'm learning. So show the entire at bat from behind the catcher, and the body language is massive. So that's so funny, mate. Because when we go to the Arizona Fall Classic, and we run into you and Pat and everyone else. First of all, I want to say something, and just to give Oregon State a lot of credit here. When you talk to Pat, I haven't met Coach Canham yet. You guys are one of the best programs, right, there is. And you guys are just completely open book. You treat everyone with respect. You don't walk around like you own the place. I do see this from these other schools where they walk around, they've got the polo and the hat on, and they're walking around like they own the place. It's like this, I don't know what it is. But that's one thing I've got to give you guys credit. Pat is awesome to deal with. He's extremely honest. He'll say, no, I'm not on that kid. I'm watching this kid, blah, blah, blah. And obviously you and I know each other well enough to do that. But it is funny. I've got to say, you go to the Arizona Fall Classic and you see you or Pat roll through. All of a sudden these other schools come after him because they want to say, who are they watching? It's so funny. But, okay, so this is something, and I want to make very clear, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this. You guys are watching the 12 seconds in between pitches, right? Or in between the at-bats. You're watching a kid if you're interested in a kid, you're watching the way he deals with things, right?
Mm-hmm.
you don't care if he hits that 500-foot home run. It's more about what he's doing in between pitches.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you heard the takes one bad apple to ruin a bushel or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we want to bring the right character people into our program.
Yeah.
Character is a big piece of what we're about here at Oregon State, and I think that, I mean, talent's good. Yeah, talent's important, but the character piece is something we never overlook.
Yeah.
We like kids that perform in the classroom, because if you're disciplined enough to be a good student, I mean, you obviously can handle getting up for weights. You can handle if you're a great student. So, I mean, those two things, if you're a great player and you're a great student, no brainer. Like, I'm in. So,
and with these videos too, what about these kids who are doing the run and gun or the pull downs? I mean, are you interested in looking at that or not? No.
Okay. Not really.
Okay. Yeah. Because here's the thing. I spoke to a couple other coaches. I don't want to throw any names out here, but they'll sort of give me a couple of things about social media, like getting on social media and watching some of the platforms you can see these kids. And so I've scoured through and I see these kids just running, throwing into a net. I'm like, if I'm a coach, like, that's great. And I get it. It's a great way to generate speed, velocity and moving faster and everything else. But in a recruiting video, probably not, right?
No, I'd steer away from the run and gun off the net.
Yeah.
I want to see, you command the zone and mix your pitches, and
right.
I want to see all that stuff. I don't want to see you throwing the ball as hard as you can off the net. Like you got to throw strikes. Otherwise, you're going to throw 4 of those, and then the guy's going to get on first, and you're going to throw 4 more of those, and then on those first and second. And it's not fun to play behind it. Your infielders are like, so anyway.
And I'm going to ask you something else, and this is a big thing, like big trend that's sort of popping up in Australia. Perfect Game, right? You get on that website, and I find these kids are so obsessed with getting their numbers. And I keep telling them, look, you have to go to a place that you're a big fish in a small pond. Now, the Arizona Fall Classic, it's tough because there's not, it's still a ton of kids there. But you have to have the right platform where you do have the right network to be able to say, hey, for Travis Bazzana, who's going to Oregon State, to say, Travis Bazzana, to tell Pat, Pat was, and I spoke to you, and Pat was down there at the time, give you an example. And I said, Pat, you have to take a look at this kid or some of the other kids that we recommended. And I told you that, and Pat obviously trusts you and the whole thing. Some of these kids get so caught up in they have to go off to this perfect game thing because they're going to get a number that's on the internet, and all of a sudden recruiters are going to look at that number and say, I'm going to pick up the phone and call. How much stock do you put into those numbers?
I don't think more than people think. I mean, I think if you're a great player and you're going to be seen, it's nowadays that we live in with all the social media, all the media, there's all these ways to be seen. There's not too many secrets anymore. And there's a lot of great players. I think it's more of a fit deal. I think for players, if you're a great player, code, and this is my own opinion, if you're in those tournaments, yes, you kind of figure out a list of schools you like, you reach out to those schools, and then you go show up at one of their camps, or you do little things like that to be seen. Right. If my son Blake wants to be whatever school he wants to go to, it's his favorite school, I'm going to tell him, go one of their camps. Go play. Go get in front of those coaches. Go let them see you. I mean, so there's so many different ways versus like I don't get on websites and just look at the top to the bottom. I don't. I mean, it's not how we do it. You got to get out and work, and you got to recruit. So.
What have you noticed since being at Oregon State? Obviously, you're only with one school before this, Grand Canyon University. For them to have that much success, to pull that many good kids and have that kind of program, from the recruiting standpoint, what do you think they do really well that you're like, oh, wow, that makes sense how they get to recruit these kids? Obviously, I know kids are going to want to go to Oregon State because of the program, and they do have that. But what do they do really well to identify the kids who are going to be good?
I think there's just a standard and I feel like the program kind of, I wouldn't say recruits itself, but the fact that I think if we're competitive people like we are, you want to go someplace where you can try to go win a national championship. I mean, I think that's something where everyone wants to go do, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so I think what Pat Casey and all the staff members here before and all the history of the players and the alumni done an amazing job to put this program where it is. And so that's it's just kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it kind of recruits itself in a way. And it draws great players because people want to go be a part of something. And, and I think in the development side is important. I think there's a good system here, how we develop. We have a lot of resources. The university blesses us with a lot of resources. And, I mean, we got just a good system. We got good coaches, like good evaluators that help too. So,
and just on that too, and this is something that gets kind of lost in translation. Now, Oregon State have multi-million-dollar facilities. GCU have amazing facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I take, I've got a group of 35 kids I bring over in October. We go and meet with you at GCU because we're in Arizona, and we're sitting there, me and Trent are sitting having lunch, and I'm looking around going, because I signed out of high school, right? I'm sitting there going, how did I miss out on coming to a place like this? I didn't have the opportunity to do it, but you don't get that. Your first 3 to 4 years in pro ball, you're lucky. Some organizations have some great setups, don't get me wrong, for spring training. Then you're off in A-ball. That's the difference too. From 18, 19, those crucial years of development, you go to a place like Oregon, GCU, and some of these other places, you get a chance to use some of these resources and facilities to develop, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of peanut butter and jelly eaten here compared to the minor league. Those are like
or the TRX bands in the hotel room because there's no weight room.
Yeah, and like the steak sandwiches in minor leagues, those GFE and just some guys eating just jelly sandwiches. I mean, but we got full blown football, athletic or dining halls where our student athletes get to go. We have a nutritionist. I mean, the resources are incredible.
Yeah, I love it when guys get to pro ball. They're like, "The hell is this?"
Oh, I know.
They come from these schools like, "What happened?"
I got picked up in a Dodge Stratus, and I thought I was getting picked up in a limo. Yeah. And my trainer's like, "Yep, see you at 5 a.m. tomorrow." I'm like,
"So funny." Oh man. So, Rich, again, I don't want to pepper you too much about the the videos or anything like that, and this is just something that I find just fascinating because you have this multifaceted responsibility. You have to recruit and you have to scout essentially, and then bring him in and be a pitching coach, and you're doing it at one of the biggest schools. So again, it's just so crazy. I'm brand new to the whole college system. I'm learning as I go to try and get these kids into school. But one other thing I want to ask you about, should I go to a JUCO? What are the disadvantages of going to a junior college before you go to a 4-year?
The advantage could be playing time. The advantage could be if you go to Division I, you have to be there for 3 years. You go to junior college, you can get drafted after your freshman year. You get drafted after your sophomore year. So you could go to the draft right away. So those are, for me, are the two biggest things for a JUCO. Playing time right away, you get to go play and compete. And whereas if you came to a university, it's kind of loaded, right? Yeah. It might take you a year or 2 years before you get significant, become that Friday guy or whatever.
Right.
So,
in that sense, if you've got a kid you're recruiting, whether it's a GCU, right? Because you've spent obviously a lot more time at GCU, and you're at Oregon State. If you've got a kid coming in and mum and dad says to them, "Oh well, he's thinking about going to this JUCO because or the argument is, we don't know if we want to come to this kind of program because he won't play right away." What are some of the advantages of going to a 4-year school right out of high school as opposed to going to a JUCO just because you want to play every day?
Yeah, I think the resources you're going to get here versus or at a university, not necessarily here, are the training room, the weight room, the exposure, the development. Not saying you can't develop it, but the resources obviously are completely different. I think the education piece might be a little better. There's some Division I schools where guess what, the degree is going to go a little farther than some junior colleges. So I think it's kind of just both ways. I think if you get hurt, you're going to get taken care of. Not that you wouldn't in a JUCO, but I think just differently. So I mean, I think those are the 3 biggest things, and I think the other piece is I like the old expression, iron sharpens iron. So
absolutely, yeah.
If I come in as a freshman, I might not be playing, but I'm around absolute dudes every day.
Yeah.
And watching them go about their work, and I remember first few big league camp, I'm watching those guys do their thing, and I'm just like, wow, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
You get to catch up to the speed of the game quicker that way too.
That's such a good point, man, because you get around studs, or then how are you going to act? It's 1,000%. Or you get around those resources or whatever it is around that kind of, that environment. It's completely different. It's funny. It depends on the kid too. Now, a good fit. Obviously, you guys are a huge school, Oregon State, and Travis. I have no problem telling Travis Bazana, neither does Trent, go to Oregon State, because already the conversations he's had in the last couple of weeks is, I'm going to play as a freshman. He has that chip on his shoulder. Like, no. I'm coming in. I'm ready to go. But you're right, man. When you get around, that first year, and if you don't play it depends on the kid. If that kid goes in and say, hey, I'm just going to work, use this time, just like right now we're dealing with this coronavirus, he's stuck at home. I'm going to use this time that I'm not playing to get after it. Well, all of a sudden, what happens in 6 to 12 months, as opposed to sitting there going, oh, well, I shouldn't have come here. I should have gone to Smithfield County Community College because I would have played every day. I think that's a great point you make as well, for sure. Anyway, so I'll cut that. We're at 52:15. Are you still good to go? I'll wrap this up right now. You good? Or is your phone ringing? Okay.
My phone was ringing, but we're fine.
Okay. Well, Rich, man, this has been fun, dude. I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of comments. Hey, you should have asked him this. You should have asked him that. Hopefully, we covered everything. I think we covered the essentials, but it was good catching up, telling some A-ball. But no, hey, Rich, man, thank you so much. This has been fun, dude. Hopefully, we can have you on again.
Thanks, Ro. Appreciate it, man. You're always a champion, and I love it, man.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.